Alright, so first thing I want to start this review off with is the fact that I'm sick. Um, I'm not sure if my voice, you can notice it in my voice or not, but I couldn't sleep at all Saturday. Woke up Sunday. Well, I got like 2 hours of sleep, and then I woke up Sunday morning with a terrible, terrible cold. So I'm kind of clogged up. Still recovering from that a little bit. So, yeah, if you can hear that in my voice, that's why I apologize. Mirror's Edge is a very experimental game, and by experimental I mean I don't even know what genre to call this, like platformer, I guess, but it has a lot of first-person shooter elements. It's from a first-person perspective. There's guns in it, and even then, a lot of it isn't even platforming. I guess what I'd call this game is running, and I guess you platform enough, but this is basically parkour the game with a little bit of gunplay involved. So the plot of this game is you're a runner named Faith, and the runners are a group of people who transport messages by jumping from building to building and parkouring around the city. Now, the reason this is necessary is because this game takes place in a dystopian future where basically the government controls all flow of information. So if you send a message or of any kind to anyone, the government reads it first. So naturally the people that are trying to rebel against that, in freedom of privacy rights, are relying on these runners to deliver messages to and from other rebels. Which is pretty interesting, seeing as how the NSA thing kind of blew up earlier this year. They did a really good job predicting that. I want to say this game probably had some, social commentary on the Patriot Act thrown in, but they do a pretty good job of not making it obvious. I think it's not so much a anti-Patriot Act thing as it's more a pro-privacy message. So they do a good job with that, I guess, but it's not really expanded upon. It's more of an excuse to have your character run around and jump over, buildings and crazy stuff. So I guess the main plot of this game kicks off when your sister is put in danger and you need to uncover a web of conspiracies with all the other runners and the government. And like I said, the plot really isn't too important. Gameplay wise, you run and jump, and you can slow down time for a little bit, which you usually do to deal with enemies. So naturally, as a messenger that's sending government information people's ways illegally, you get the cops chasing after you. You get SWAT later on in the game. Actually, that's one thing I kind of like about this game is the enemy progression of skill is pretty cool. At first, you just get people with pistols. Later on, you have people coming at you with assault rifles and machine guns. And even later on, you get people that are just as skilled at parkour as you and chase you down, and they're pretty scary to deal with. But the main goal of this game is to just get to the other side of the level or where you need to go as fast as possible. This is a speedrunner, type of game. In fact, there's even a time trial mode, which is basically pandering to the speedrunning community as a whole. The problem comes with the fact that there's a few points where they stop you throughout the levels, which I guess isn't too bad on later runs when you know what you're doing. But for first run or, second run or whatever, there are points where you're in a room and you're not really sure where you need to go. There is a button on its circle on PS3. I'm not sure what it is on 360 or PC. But you press a button and it shows where your character needs to go. The problem is it doesn't always do that. Like, there's some places you're in where it just won't, activate for whatever reason. And also, sometimes it shows you where you need to go, but it's kind of hard to tell how you get there. So that kind of kills the pacing. And there's also points where you're forced to fight. Now, the combat in the game comes in two flavors, I guess. The first is your melee attacks, where you can run and punch people, run and kick people, run and slide and kick at people, you know, all that type of stuff. And you can also disarm people and take their guns. But they kind of discourage it, mainly because there's no auto aim, you can't aim down sights, and you can't reload. Once you empty a gun's clip, you throw the gun away. So they kind of discourage you from that. So it doesn't really sound like a combat-heavy game, right? You would think in a game like this, the solution would be just to run away from everything. The problem is there's a few spots in the game where you can't, and they force you to take out like 3 or 4 enemies before you can progress, and it kind of kills the pacing a little bit. I think it's a thing where the development team had a lot of very experimental ideas. It's kind of like Portal 1, in that they made the game kind of short. You know, they kind of did a few risky things, but they still, well, I guess not so much Portal 1, but this game kind of holds back in a few areas, kind of with the dealing with enemies first and stuff like that, where it feels like there's a few members of the development team that's like, well, we need to have a few of these sections in here to appeal to traditional gamers, and it kind of holds back what the game should have been about, which is honestly fast-paced parkour action. So those aren't too bad. They're kind of few and far between, but they're kind of annoying at the same time. Also, this game is pretty short. I want to say you could probably beat this in 1 day. Maybe 2 if you're busy like I was. There's a few time trial modes. There's online leaderboards where you can compare your friends' times to yours. There's a few challenge modes where they take segments of levels and cut them up into, you know, like time trials where you need to race from checkpoint to checkpoint, which are kind of fun. But I guess that's where the main issue comes in. There's not a lot to this game, and there's a few minor annoyances which kind of take away from the full experience. It's still a great game, and I still can't wait for the sequel that's coming out on next-gen platforms, mainly because I think they realized their mistakes. I think this game was kind of just testing the waters, and they're getting all of the crap out of the way that they didn't want to deal with for the sequel right here, so they could figure out what works, what doesn't work. Overall, I guess I'd give this game an 8 out of 10. Yeah, I'd say 8 out of 10, mainly because it's pretty short. You know, like I said, there's a few points in the game where you kind of gets annoying because they kill the pace a little bit when it should be about speed. I'm starting to repeat myself, I guess, but I'd say you give this game a go. It's really good. It deserves all the praise it gets, definitely. I would say pick this up on PSN or Xbox Live, because I know it's cheap on there, but I wouldn't pay more than $20 for this game, simply because it's pretty short. But yeah, this is really fun. I highly recommend you play this, especially if you love speedrunning games. You pretty much owe it to yourself to play this. And hell, I don't even really care that much for speedrunning, but this game kind of made me interested in it because it does it so well. So yeah, I'd say pick this up.